Hi guys, this week the topic is plot holes. This was suggested by somebody that we do an episode on plot holes. So if you've got a suggestion, go to Reddit, Instagram, Craig D Griffiths at all those places, or to griffithscreative.com.au and leave a suggestion there. Or your log line, and we'll review your log line here like we did last week. Okay, plot holes. The explanation for plot holes, they're an inconsistency in story or logic. They're something that doesn't make sense. When people ask that question, why didn't they just, or why didn't he, or that's a hole in the plot. When people make decisions that you would not normally make for no reason. Some examples. There's two types of plot holes. There's the unintentional plot hole, which can come about when you're trying to fix things. Or you're doing a rewrite and you think, I can make that better, I'll change that, I'll give them this scene, I'll give them these things to do, I'll give her that, I'll get her to do this, or they should go over there. And that breaks something else. I don't know if I've told this story before, but one of the early companies that had adopted the movie The Hostage that I wrote, we were talking to the director, and in it, I had a little bit of a Quentin Tarantino type moment, where there was two corrupt cops in the front seat talking to someone in the back. They'd picked up this person. One cop was very corrupt. The other one was like going along with his new partner. And the guy that was going along with his new partner wasn't super corrupt, but he was willing to bend the rules where he might pick somebody up, put him in a car, drive them around and scare them a bit to get some information. He was that sort of cop, you know. And this guy's like, no, that's super hard to film on the budget we've got because it was a low budget film. So I think we just put him in the boot and you rewrite a conversation for the guys in the front for that opening scene. And I pushed back against that quite hard because it would have introduced a plot hole. What happens is that these two coppers then take the guy to the car, take him into a workshop or a warehouse, whatever we were shooting at. We were shooting at a warehouse at the time, a workshop in New Jersey for this early production. And then one cop starts smacking him around and getting a bit violent. And the guy's like, hold on, we brought him here to scare him. And the other guy's like, yeah, when you beat the shit out of them, it's amazing how scared they get. So he was willing to put him in a car, drive him around and scare him. If he had been the sort of cop that was willing to grab someone off the street and put him in the boot and drive him to a workshop in New Jersey, he wouldn't be the sort of guy that goes, oh, hold on, we can't hit him. So there would have been that plot hole. That would have been that inconsistency in story. People would have gone, come on, it doesn't make sense. It would have, if he's willing to do that, now he's not going to be, it would have made his reluctance to participate in violence look like a plot hole. It would have been, now you're only doing that for convenience, so you've got a bit of a conflict between those two cops. That's not real. You're hostage, you kidnapped the guy and threw him in the boot of a car. So that would have introduced a sort of plot hole. There's the Die Hard example. I'll put these pictures up here. Die Hard was being rewritten as they were filming it. So what happened is that they got, how are we going to get out? How are we going to get out? How are we going to get out of this? And then I think it was D'Souza who was doing the rewrite. He turned around and said, well, they could sneak out with the first responders. If they just disguise themselves, it's like a great idea. So we'll have an ambulance and they'll hide in the ambulance and just drive away with all the bearer bonds and everything. You know, pats on the back, fantastic. They filmed it. They were working, and then suddenly they realised there's a shot, which will be up here, when they first pull up, you can see into the truck, and there is no ambulance. A massive plot hole. They didn't care because there was so much action between the guys getting out of the truck and the truck getting out of the ambulance. They've gone, no one's going to remember that, but it's a fairly famous plot hole. The Walking Dead. I like The Walking Dead. I've watched all the years of The Walking Dead. I always thought to myself, well, when you'd find a cliff or you'd find something that was going to destroy the walkers. A cliff would be great over the ocean or over a river. They had a river. And you would just hang something that was very loud a long way away from your town. So it would just draw all the walkers, all the zombies up there. They'd fall in a river and get washed out to sea, or, fall over a cliff into the ocean, and there would be no problem because you'd be dragging them away from you. And you'd also bring in a thing of like a quiet curfew. After 8 o'clock at night, we go into our houses and we keep quiet for the night. And that loud noise will drag them away. it will suck all the zombies in that direction and we'll be safe. They never did that. There was that constant threat. And I thought, well, that's such an easy thing to do. And that was a little bit of a plot hole. The other plot hole, and I was thinking of these, just writing them down, I haven't done anything mega research on it, is The Quiet Place, where he takes his son and they stand under a waterfall. There's a cave behind them. They can have a conversation. They can yell. They can scream. They can do whatever they want. Well, why didn't they just live in the waterfall? You know, why live where the creatures are, where you have to be quiet? Why not? Stanley Tucci had a very similar thing where creatures attacked things that made noise. And in that, someone turns on what do they call them? A shredder, a chipper, where you put wood in. Steve Buscemi was fed into one in Fargo, and it just turns it into wood chip. Well, that's chewing away, and all the creatures are flying into it and being killed. Why wouldn't you just have half a dozen of those all the way over there? A bit like the zombie thing. Set up something very loud over there that's going to destroy them. As they go, they get destroyed. They scream. That brings more and brings more and brings more, and eventually you'll just deplete the population or live under the waterfall. These are both plot holes. So plot holes come about for two reasons. There's two sorts. There's the one that I talked about earlier, where you've done a rewrite, you've been asked to fix this problem right here, and you do, not realizing it has an impact back there. It introduces a plot hole that, okay, you've given the guy a gun here so he can threaten the guy who's about to rob him. But then later on, when he gets beaten up, he doesn't pull the gun. Why wouldn't you use the gun? That's a plot hole. There's a device here that would make sense to use, but you're not using it. And the other plot hole that people do, and it happens all the time in television, someone's got a piece of information that will save the world or save the situation, or basically just end the story right now, and they don't share it for a reason. Reasons. So-and-so says, I'm going to go here and do this and everyone's like, yeah, and they walk out and then that person does the whole, just tell them. People share information for a number of reasons. As human beings, we want to appear to be smart, like, look what the secret I've found out. They want to help other people. People are by nature empathetic and philanthropic. So they'll want to give the information, and everyone's on the same side here. So we're all moving ahead. And when people don't give you information, and the audience can smell a plot hole a mile away, they're like, oh, okay. Obviously, they didn't say that because they want that person to go over to the castle and get attacked by the vampires. Okay, and then we're going to have that whole revenge plot. Suddenly, it derails the whole thing. Taking logic out, because most people are logical, you take logic out of your story breaks beyond all repair. So how do you spot a plot hole? You've got to take this space shuttle view. The Artemis has just been launched. The Artemis view of your story. You've got to look at it from start to end. Does it have a coherent logic thing to it? Is all the decisions in there and decisions beforehand, Quiet Place, why are they living there and not living under the waterfall? When was that decision made? Do all those decisions hold together and make sense in its entirety? Are they sensible? Or do they introduce a plot hole? When you fix a plot hole, go back to step one. Look at it in its holistic approach. Is it still logically consistent? So you read the script from start to finish. When you make a change to a character, does it break? A plot hole is a very simple thing. It's like I said earlier, it's the lack of consistency or decisions and logic. The other plot hole you'll find is when they set up rules of the world. They do this in haunted houses. The ghosts can do all sorts of things, but then suddenly they can walk through walls. Why didn't they walking through walls before? Lord of the Rings, I sound like I pick on poor old Tolkien a lot. But if they have the eagles, why were they walking anywhere? They sound like a plot hole. Oh, we're traveling. We're dying on a mountain. Here comes the eagles. Boom, problem solved. Why are we only calling on eagles every now and then, unless they explain? You can call on the eagles all the time, a bit like Thor's hammer, but only if what you're doing is worthy will the eagles come. They're not only the weapon you can launch whenever you want, but they haven't explained that. Well, they haven't explained it anything that I've seen. So if you Superman, that's why they introduced Kryptonite, because they realised there was this massive plot hole. We can't have stories when Superman is completely and utterly indestructible. There's no challenges for him. He just walks around going, you're dead, laser beam eyes, break this, jump over that, fly here, do this. There's a massive hole that couldn't be filled. He was indestructible. There's nothing they could do to stop him. That means the stories don't work. So we have to introduce something, which was kryptonite. So now there's a challenge for him to push against, because all these other threats were just fake threats. There was nothing of consequence. It's not really a plot hole as such, but they needed to introduce something to make it feasible. And if they didn't introduce kryptonite, to suddenly have it appear as a convenience. That's where a lot of plot holes come into. A person writes themselves into the corner and they go, oh, I'll do that, and then I'll open up the story again. But they haven't done the setup and payoff. They've never said that was in earlier, so now they can use it over here. And that's what a plot hole is. It's a complete lack of logic. It's inconsistency. Look at your story in its entirety and you'll see plot holes. Question every decision made by a character or the logic of your story as a whole. Plot holes will become incredibly visible when you see them. Okay guys, that's it. If you could do the things, that'd be fantastic. Leave comments. There've been plenty of comments. Nick over to Griffiths Creative. If you've got questions, you want log lines reviewed. And until next time, keep writing. Bye guys.